climate parents have come to Wyoming to try to make sure that we in Wyoming cover science, because obviously we're anti-science, and we don't want any science standards where kids can learn about science in our schools because we're a bunch of flatheads in flyover country or something like that. Did I get it right?
Yes, yes. The notorious climate parents of Berkeley, California have decided to condescend to come into Wyoming and let us know what we should teach our children.
Okay.
So we appreciate their advice and are so thankful that they've come to tell all the rest of the rubes how we should teach science.
And don't let the screen door hit you on the way out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the appropriate response, and I think there's been plenty of parents that have clued into what a farce this group really is.
Well, and let me give you everybody a real quick part of what we're talking about. And it's, by the way, this is why you show up at school board meetings, in case you didn't know that groups like this actually do show up. They have a flyer, and it says on the flyer, Wyoming lawmakers, and then in a different color font so it stands out, admit to blocking climate change education to protect coal interests. Now, would that accurately represent, or do you think they're trying to skew the story?
Yeah, no, that would be a lie, or I guess to perhaps say a softer political spin.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the folks that are truly politicizing education and how we want to create standards. So that's just a complete political spin.
Okay. What was part of your agenda today? What did you want to talk about today?
Well, a couple of things. Like I said, I was recently in Arizona and had the great opportunity to go through a charter school down there.
Okay.
And so it's been interesting news nationwide on educational choice. Arizona is one of those areas. They have a great public charter school system down there. I toured a core knowledge school. It's just fabulous. I mean, it's one of those things where when you can see education in that light and really see the choices that parents can make in a state like Arizona, it's exciting. You come back to Wyoming and it's just something that it's so profoundly important to get done here.
Well, let's take a look at that real quick, if I can interrupt, just because I did touch on that. When I talked about that climate change group coming to Wyoming, one of the things that I suggested was, it seems to me the best way to educate our kids is to give parents choice. So instead of one size fits all, and we debate what's going to be taught at those schools, we have all sorts of different schools with all sorts of different points of view, and you as a parent get to choose. So if you think that man is causing climate change, you can go to that school, or if you think otherwise, and even you can go to a religious school or a non-religious school. So is this what you're advocating?
Absolutely. That's exactly the point. Parents need to have that option. If I suspect that groups like climate parents, if we asked them if they would advocate for choice and letting parents choose, they would probably come back with a big no.
Right.
I know that the very few number of followers they have in this state, who are mostly Democrats, mostly heavily involved in leftist programs in the state, do not support public school choice. They don't want parents to have an exit strategy out of the public school system. So their tolerance is about an inch long. They won't allow people to go somewhere else, but that's exactly right. The whole point is that parents need options of where and how they want their children educated, and Wyoming simply doesn't get that. So as we continue to fight on Common Core, these science standards, more federal government involvement in education, parents still don't have more choices in the state of Wyoming. They're stuck. I'm
talking to Amy Edmonds from Wyoming Liberty Group, and just to back up a little bit of what you said, I know the president said when he got into office that he was all for school choice, and then immediately in Washington, D.C., it cancels the school voucher program. They had to fight and sue to restart it, but then he found a way to cut off funding again, so they had to fight to get the funding back again. So apparently he's not all that concerned with, in fact, he's very anti-choice, even though his kids go to a private school.
Well, that's exactly it. And it's not just on the left. Let's be equally harsh to Republicans. Folks like Jeb Bush, who used to be the poster child for parental choice, have really sold out. I mean, they've completely sold out parents on the idea of choice when they've sold into this whole idea of Common Core, a national standard, a national set of curriculums. I mean, we have to be very clear. The whole idea of a national curriculum and national standards is simply to eliminate any outlier in education. There will be no tolerance when they want to change the ACT, when they essentially want to change the entire system of how your child is educated from K through their college career. They want no outliers. It makes a mockery of choice. It basically removes choice
I'm
completely.
talking with Amy Edmonds from Wyoming Liberty Group. Let me hit you on 2 points, though. Okay, one of them is this radio show is now heard through parts of the Dakotas and Nebraska and Wyoming and Montana. These states really don't have much as far as population goes and a lot of space between towns. So we have one-room schoolhouses in some places. So how do you set up a charter school system in an area like this?
Well, you would set a system up just like you would pretty much anywhere else. I think the one thing with a public charter school system that we've seen nationwide, and the reason that you don't see vigorous systems in smaller, more rural states, is simply the public charter school system was a response to the abject failure of urban schools all across this country, which speaks to the failure in the public education system. So it hasn't, Glenn, necessarily always translated into states that are very, very rural. Because many people are still okay with their public school system.
Right.
Many people are, and that's okay. I mean, if you're in a small community where you're happy with your public school system, God bless you, I'm thrilled. That's wonderful. But the point is, not everybody in your state may be thrilled. There are still plenty of urban centers and even rural states where parents aren't happy. Case in point here in Laramie County in Cheyenne. The local school district here had a Common Core meeting two weeks ago, and I attended it. It was an hour and a half, Glenn, of parent after parent after parent after parent after parent unhappy with the Common Core, giving specific examples of the homework nightmare they're dealing with, the unhappiness of their child, how deeply upset they are. Parents down here don't have anywhere else to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, how
they
was
have nowhere else to go.
With all the parents getting up and voicing their opposition to Common Core, how well has that been received in the state, especially by the governor, but also those who are supposedly in charge of our schools?
There's still kind of a deafness amongst those in power over education. There's still those that just want to get up and read the talking points, the national talking points about Common Core, and simply walk away. They really don't want to hear or want to engage with parents. And we see this more and more. We've seen it nationally. I mean, we see national figureheads like, the comedian Louis C.K. who got on Twitter the other day to blast the Common Core in New York, and all of all the left's friends. A reporter from Newsweek just was so upset with him. But more, I mean, this is really breaking apart for them because more and more people are coming out. When pop culture begins to make fun of the Common Core, it's in big trouble.
Yeah.
It's in big trouble when comedians are slamming it because their kids are so unhappy in public schools. I don't know what it's going to take to turn the tide here in Wyoming and get folks like Governor Mead to listen. I don't know. I just know that parents are this is not going to go away because this is a reality in people's lives.
Well, I'll tell you what's something that worries me, and I have said this, that I can upset people by warning them, and they think that I'm against them. No, I'm not against you. I'm warning you. Charter schools, private schools, home schools, don't think that these people in the federal government with Common Core and other such curriculum don't want to get into your curriculum, even if you homeschool.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. This whole system is created to basically have no outliers. I mean, when they start converting the ACT and SAT, which every parent wants their child to go on to college, pretty much. When they start doing that, you are basically forcing everyone, private schools, homeschoolers, any outlier to the public education system. You're forcing them into your little tub of common, crappy standards.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, the whole point is to get everybody the same. I mean, that's what you hear when you listen to the argument. It's to get everyone the same. And this is a federal initiative. I mean, we can't, no matter how much, even representatives here in Wyoming, and I've spoken to some of them who are very upset, they do not want this link between these standards and the federal government to be exposed. They don't want to talk about it. They want to basically stick their heads in the sand and say this was state-led, they read the talking points. Well, if you look and see, the federal government has been micromanaging education for quite some time. Just last week, Washington State had their No Child Left Behind waiver revoked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, This is shocking. This should be very shocking, and it really caused a lot of waves across the education bureaucracy movement across the country. What it means for a state like Wyoming is that every state is at jeopardy. The federal government under President Obama has behaved in some of the most lawless ways when it comes to this waiver. And just very quickly, the waiver, No Child Left Behind waiver is essentially in 2002 when President Bush passed No Child Left Behind, it started a clock ticking to this year, 2014. States were supposed to be proficient this year under this federal mandate. Well, guess what? They're not. No one is. So President Obama did not go to Congress, did not ask to have a rewriting of No Child Left Behind or a change. They just simply cooked up a waiver scheme and asked states to basically comply with their federal strings to this waiver to get you out from under No Child Left Behind, but there were strings attached. Washington State refused to enact one of those strings, and that is to tie teacher evaluations to students' grades. So how your student performed, Washington State said, no, we're not doing that. We will not do that. We're going to let the local districts continue to deal with their teachers and their personnel their own way. We're not going to create this teacher accountability system. Well, for the first time, and they're the first state, Washington has now yanked their waiver. They go back under the No Child Left Behind mandates, which essentially means that about $40 million of Title I federal funds are no longer going to be controlled by the state, but controlled by the federal government.
No.
Well, I'm just back, actually. I was in Arizona taking a look at a charter school. They have an opportunity scholarship. They have tax credit scholarships. They have kind of a plethora of things that we're looking into.
Okay, now looking into, how does a state like Wyoming or some of these other states in our area measure up to what's happening down there?
We don't.
Okay.
I mean, we're not even, I mean, if this were a track event, we're not even on the track yet. We're not even warming up. We have no choice. Our charter school law consistently gets an F or a D. We allow charter schools, however, only local school districts can authorize a charter school. You can imagine how well that goes over Glenn.
Right.
So, yeah.
Whenever I have a chance to talk to either our governor or some of our representatives, they all say they are enthusiastically in support of charter schools and homeschools and private schools. But either they're giving me lip service or they don't know that we're in a poor state of affairs here. So how do we get the conversation going so they can make some changes to our system?
Well, I think first of all, we have to demand more than lip service. I mean, you know, it's not a question of do you support, it's a question of will you sponsor legislation, will you actively be engaged in writing, discussing, convincing your fellow legislators. For every legislator who says that they support educational choice, ask them if they've sponsored a bill or if they've been a co-sponsor on a bill. That at least gives you a better idea than just saying, yeah, I support it, and they do nothing.
Amy, would you be in favor of a school voucher program for states like Wyoming?
I think any opportunity for parents to exit the public education system and make choice should be on the table. Absolutely. Opportunity scholarships, which is the new way of basically talking about vouchers, is, I think, an excellent opportunity. Arizona just expanded theirs. They started it as simply a program for children with disabilities. They've expanded it out to the siblings of those children, to any child in a failing school, so a school that's been failing for 7 or more years. And if you go take a look at Wyoming's public school roster of how many schools are failing across the state, it's pretty impressive. Here in Wyoming County, it's pretty extensive. So that would mean every child in that school. And an opportunity scholarship essentially takes what we're paying per child, and it's about $16,000 on average, places it into an account. The parents get a debit card, and then they spend that money simply only on educational choices. So we're not saying they get a card and they go out and woohoo.
Yeah.
They can only spend it on. Now, there are lots of hurdles to this program, and I'm sure people who are listening to this can think of several. Wyoming has a constitution, says that money can't be outside of the control of the state of Wyoming. We have other hurdles, but I think these are hurdles we have to start talking about how we get rid of them so that parents have more choice.
Well, and that would be, even though I don't want to see standards imposed on, but still you would have to make sure that private schools, charter schools, actually do live up to standards to produce the the educational quality that we're after.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, one of the things that Wyoming can do that other states who really led the charge on charter schools didn't do is we can learn from past mistakes. There is a way, Glenn, in which you can measure whether a charter school is good or bad. And when the charter school, we didn't know this. So there's a lot of, if you can go look, there's a lot of stories of charter schools that didn't do well. And now we understand what it takes to make a successful school. And so it's about how you authorize a school, who you have involved in authorizing a school, the expertise you need of the people who authorize schools. So these are things that are well known. There are best practices out there, and we can certainly adopt them. We just need to get to the business of doing that.
Okay. You've certainly been leading the charge on schools through Wyoming Liberty Group. Is there a certain section of the website dedicated to this?
We have a new website up. It's just a sort of our education page. It's ylibertyineducation.org. So go check us out. We still put things up on our regular yliberty.org, so ylibertyineducation.org or yliberty.org. Maureen Bader's been doing some great work on I think she was on last week, on the science standards, so check us out.
Okay. Now you're off to, let's get on to the other subject, the GOP convention. What do you expect to find there?
Well, I'm going to be listening to a lot of speeches, seeing what these folks who are running for office have to say. It should be very interesting. And then talking to a lot of legislators and delegates and just the good folks who make up the Republican Party. I've got a whole bag full of my Take Back Wyoming education buttons and hoping I can pass as many out as possible. All
right. Well, if you want to call in at some point during all of this next week, is it just the weekend or next week?
The convention is Friday and Saturday.
Oh,
they're working. They're working today, and
Yeah.
they'll do committee work tomorrow. The main convention is all day.
Okay, because we got to get an update from you on that convention. So give your impression of what happened down there. Amy, thanks for coming on. Good to talk to you again.
Thanks so much. Good to talk to you.